Come one, come all. Episode 312 is going to be stacked up with a triple-decker from Texas and looking ahead to Kansas. And we're going to talk about the long-awaited news with the championship race, some TV ins and outs, and a lot more here as Devin and I take you 5 to go. Yes, episode 312 is on, boy. Crank up that hot rod, Lincoln. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull from the Performance Racing Network, and Devin Kupka here, the roving racing journo multimedia enthusiast from the University of North Georgia, and we're going to guide you through what went down at Texas Motor Speedway and some other ins and outs of the sport, some things about Rick Ware Racing and their whole lawsuit with Legacy Motor Club and so on and so forth. Actually, it's the other way. It's legacies to Rick Ware, but we got a lot of that to discuss here, and TNT has announced who is going to be roving pit road in their studios and pre-race shows and whatnot. So we'll get into the TNT lineup there because there's someone in particular that I'm very excited about. But welcome to the 5 to Go podcast. I want to say Dan Elliott not here today. He's having to tend to Miss Lolly, his wife there. She broke her arm. And I wanted to talk about something big here. So, Devin, let's start out by going to the Wayback Machine. All right, first off, how are you? What's going on, man? You good?
I am doing good. It's been a busy last weekend. It's going to be a busy weekend this weekend. We got softball regionals for the NCAA tournament. We just wrapped up Peach Belt tournament for both baseball and softball this weekend. So we're just in the middle stretch of tournament season now.
Yeah, and the end of the academic school year, I know, brings on a lot of that, and your time is starting to come to an end with that department as you're getting close to graduating there. So I look forward to see what's in the next chapter for DK, buddy, not DK Ulrich, old NASCAR owner. I mean Devin Kupka, of course. But before we look ahead, because I got to talk to Joey Logano at Victory Lane. I was helping patrol the pits for the Performance Racing Network. But before we get to that, we celebrated this past week the 40th anniversary of Bill Elliott making up 2 laps under green at Talladega, under green with no drafting help. Keep mind you, okay, this is before it was just a severe drafting only track, to win that race, the 1985 500 mile there at Talladega Super Speedway, which kept Bill in contention, of course, for the Winston Million, which we'll also celebrate the 40th anniversary of and during the Southern 500 weekend. Dan was going to be on to talk to us a little more about that race, but basically he was running like 2 seconds faster than the rest of the field or something ridiculous like that. And I want to ask Dan, and I know he's not going to admit it, but I still got to ask, okay, Dan, it's 40 years later. What'd y'all have brewing under the hood there, bud? Come on. Because everybody else that talks about it's like, dude, these guys were cheated up. But we'll hear Dan's way that he facilitates that answer. Yes, Devin.
And if you about 2 weeks ago when we previewed Talladega, I asked him about that race in 1980 in the 1985 race. So if you want to go check out our conversation, listen to 5 to Go 2 weeks ago. It's towards the end of the episode.
Okay, that's why I didn't. I listened to a chunk of it when I was on vacation in the Azores there, but I did not hear that part. So good. Devin already did the secret squirrel detective work. We move on, okay?
I don't know if I asked him the question of, because I was honoring it, not trying to, hey. But it, yeah, I don't know if I asked him what was in the tank that day, but we had a good discussion.
Dan has always maintained that they just worked hard and they found stuff. They found stuff. I mean, but you ask a lot of other people, there's a lot going on, including a lot of people will say that Bill Elliott's fans just stuffed the ballot box for the most popular driver deal too. But nonetheless, we'll get on to Texas. I love the Elliott legacy, and I love hearing more about it. They had a lot to be proud of. Ahead to Texas here, Joey Logano. Gosh, he breaks Devin 11 race winless streak. Actually, 10 races because the last one was Phoenix, and then this race is number 11. So 10 race winless streak. Actually, I don't know. When you have the winless streak, you don't count the last one you won, right? You go the ones in between, right?
Yeah. You start after you last won a race.
Yeah. For some reason, whatever. That confuses me. Just like left and right, I get a little wonky sometimes. But, okay, so Joey Logano, 10-race winless streak. It's been, Devin, it's been 6 months since Joey Logano won a championship. Okay. So, but really, you think about his record. He had a dubious record of being the first defending champion ever to go 10 races without a top 5 there the next season. He actually broke Bill Elliott's record. in 1989 of lack of top five finishes to start a year. He had a top five finish at Talladega, as we know, runner up, or rather, he was fifth, disqualified, comes to Texas, has a bad qualifying draw. And this is something I was really attuned to, Devin, having worked the qualifying broadcast at a track where I'd really only done this at Atlanta and Bristol, but at a track where the sun and the sensitivity of the racetrack really matter. And so Joey Logano with the bad finish at Talladega, Ryan Blaney with the bad finish at Dega, and some other big names, Christopher Bell, right? Chris Buescher. They had bad qualifying draws, so they were in Group A qualifying. Less rubber on the racetrack, you're automatically giving up tenths and half a tenth just by where you fire off from. And nonetheless, Logano, Blaney, those guys started near the back. Not Buescher. He was in the top 15. But so Logano, much like Bristol, started in the back and was kind of floundering there. But then every pit cycle, they gobbled up a little more track position. It gobbled up a little more. And I had his pit. I didn't call a Joey Logano pit stop all day. He was never in my top 3 or 4. He was never really that relevant. And then in the last semester of the race, if you will, the last season of the race, suddenly you got 2 Penske cars in the top 10, Blaney being the other. Austin Cindric, who actually did he give up a stage winner? Let me get to the results here. Austin Cindric, who dominated and led a lot of laps early out in the clean air, he had faded back and then eventually got eliminated in a wreck. Yes, he won stage 1. It was his teammates that were up there in the top 10. Josh Berry, who was leading a bunch of laps, he ran over the bump and crashed. He was taken out of contention. Then it was old, dependable, and faithful Blaney and Logano. And not only that, they were racing on a restart next to each other at the very end of this race when things could have gone terribly wrong. So it was Joey Logano that went to victory lane, and he didn't just go to victory lane, Devin. There were 2 moves that happened on these sequences of restarts, because what we had is we had overtime, the double overtime. We had several cautions before it. Logano just kept, slaying through them. And there was a point where he went 3 wide middle from about the 5th spot and squirted up into the top 2 or 3, but that's when McDowell had gotten away. Then Logano finally, there's another restart. McDowell's holding him off. Logano buries that car in the back straightaway into turn 3. Did you watch it by this point in the race? Were you watching live? What'd you think of that
Yes.
move?
Yeah, I thought that was crazy because he used all of the racetrack to make that move against Michael McDowell.
Uh-huh.
And you just kind of knew that was pretty much the race winning move right there.
Absolutely.
And one thing, too, I feel bad. I feel really bad for Michael McDowell, who's leading laps at the end of the race, is going to steal a victory at Texas Motor Speedway, but then gets passed by Joey Logano, then gets passed for second, and then spins out.
Yep.
Coming off of turn 1 on the backstretch. I feel bad for that. I
I
feel
think
bad
the
for him.
sentiment about McDowell, besides what an upset win, the first real non-steal of a win for Spire. You said he's stealing one. He took 2. Travis Peterson called 2 tires for him to get the track position, but then he drove up and got the lead. He didn't have the lead with those 2 tires. He drove up and passed. I think it was Larson on that last restart, or that not the last restart, the last one that he was in. That Larson was in the lead. Blaney could have started on the top of the outside row. And this is the part where Blaney kicked himself so much. And Blaney chose to start behind Larson on the bottom line, I guess thinking that the top line wouldn't fire because of and so but he didn't push Larson enough to get him clear. And Larson didn't get going. McDowell shoots around him. And then McDowell doesn't just have the lead in clean air, but then there's a caution and he holds him off on a restart. And then there's another caution. And then you finally see Logano, I think on the 3rd time that McDowell is out in the lead, actually make this just incredible, really, frankly, high risk, high reward move. Because McDowell could have done what he did at Talladega last spring. Remember what happened there? Where McDowell blocked 5 lanes of traffic trying to keep the lead, and it ended up spinning Brad Keselowski. It caused a huge crash there when Tyler Reddick won last spring at Dega, and instead, McDowell blocked him all the way to where he thought he could still make the corner below the line. Logano just said, "No, I'm going to get it." And what does Logano have to lose, right? With the points not mattering as much, if you crash, you're crashing trying to win. It's kind of like, who cares? Even though Logano entered that race only 11th in the standings. So, with all that being said, Logano makes the move. McDowell then loses second place to Blaney. And then in fighting with him for it or trying to maintain third place is when he just puts the car over the edge and crashes. And there was a look, and I'm sure you saw it on TV, Devin. Travis Peterson, McDowell's crew chief, just had his head buried in his arms. Like, oh, there it was. We had it right there. And McDowell said, I was pushing it for the lead. I didn't need to push it to finish third. He could have just gone 95% and probably finished third, and instead ended up back in 26th. He was actually the highest finishing DNF in that race was Michael McDowell, 26. Yes, we had 38 cars in this race. 12 of them failed to finish. Josh Berry in 32nd place was actually still running at the end. That a little bit of an interesting deal there. I'll just mention it quickly so I don't forget, and then we're going to hear from Joey Logano on victory lane. Josh Berry led 41 laps. He crashed. They go to the garage, not the DVP area. All right. They go to the actual garage and are working on it in the garage bay. They decide, hey, we're going to see if we can actually go out and make some more laps. But because he crashed, there was a mandatory trip to the care center. So Laura Beth Barnhart, our PRN race director, sends me to the garage. All right. I don't know that I was the closest one to the garage. They said I was, but whatever. Okay. We go to the garage. And I'm like, okay, well, Barry is out of the car. He is about to go to the care center. So he's done for the day, right? And I go up and ask Crew Chief Miles Stanley, hey, so y'all, no, we're still working on it. And then Barry goes to the care center. Hey, Doug, go to the care center and get Barry. I'm like, okay. So I actually, after he interviewed with Regan Smith on TV, I said, hey, so what's the deal? Like, are you done? Or what's the deal? And he goes, no, we're still working on it. I might get back in. Here's the deal. We have to go to the care center anyway. I might as well get it out of the way now. And then you could go get back in the car and go run. So that's what they did, and he finished 32nd. Maybe that's not interesting to anybody but me, and I just took 2 minutes explaining something that's like, but I thought that was weird because usually I think care center done for the day, and we're sort of back to what NASCAR was a few years ago where you could, run damaged cars and he got his back out there. There were some others that really tried to work on him. Bubba Wallace did not, they ended up not finishing. Let's see. Yeah, they finished 33rd. AJ Allmendinger took it back. They were sawing on the thing, and then a bunch of others just didn't even try to fix it. So with that being said, in the front, Joey Logano, who had, Bubba Wallace spin off his nose there. It was Wallace who admitted he caused that crash, though. Joey Logano survived some of that carnage and ended up winning. And here's another tidbit before we play his deal here. First time that AAA has ever gone to Victory Lane as a primary sponsor in the Cup Series. And that includes going when Mark Martin ran his scheme in 2006. David Reagan had it 2 full seasons in 07 and 08. And then they're a part-time primary sponsor throughout. And they had never gone to Victory Lane. So with that being said, Joey Logano does bring that up here. But do you have something to say, Devin, before
I find that surprising that AAA is this is the first time they've gone to Victory Lane, because I could have sworn Logano won like an auto club race sometime like 10 years ago that he won in the AAA car, but I guess not.
I would have thought so too. But he's run it so much, you just think he has, and it's just like didn't when Elliott won for the Hooters scheme in Texas, was that something like where Hooters hadn't won before? No, or did they win with him at Talladega?
Well, that ended up being Hooters' last race on for Elliott.
But no, I know what it was. That was Hooters' first victory as a primary sponsor since Alan Kulwicki. That was a big deal. And Hooters ran some full seasons as sponsors after Kulwicki's death in 1993. They were with Loy Allen and Brett Bodine and some others. And yeah, that was just interesting how you kind of don't realize that. There was another sponsor recently that just won that hadn't ever won or not won it forever too. But anyway, Joey Logano's AAA Ford goes to Victory Lane of the Worth 400 Texas Motor Speedway, and I got a chance because he was on my end of pit road. I got to go to Victory Lane twice this weekend, Dev. Kyle Larson too. So here we go, Joey Logano. Here with Joey Logano, who's just jumped out to a rain of Coca-Cola and Dasani water here. He's giving a big hug to his championship-winning crew chief, Paul Wolf, here in Victory Lane. Logano donned those AAA colors there on his number 22 Ford, and he's doing this at the track that he got his first win for Penske back in 2013. Joey, I want to hear first about that move you made on Michael McDowell there going, I think it was into turn one, but that looked like it almost wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I knew my only chance was getting a run at 1 and 2. The lap before that, I almost had it. I
It
was
was
like,
turn
okay, I'm
three,
just going
by
to go
the
to
way.
the opposite. And he went to the bottom again. And I got into the center. I said, yep, this is it. This is the run. And I knew he wasn't going to let me get – I didn't want the outside, and he definitely wanted the bottom. And we I went all the way to the inside wall. I was like, I'm going to get there. It's just going to have to give me some space here eventually, or we're going to both wreck. So it was a heck of a battle there, and then racing my teammate there for the win at the end. Just a good battle, right? I mean, we fought all day long with this AAA Mustang to get the track position, right? We started in the back and just methodically and slowly picked a couple more off, and then before I knew it, I could see the front and got to the lead there at the end. So very proud of the team to battle through the adversity of starting in the back and the pit stops. Proud to get AAA and Victory Lane finally. I think it's been 14 years they've been on our car, and finally won one with them. So that's a nice thing to do as well. And then obviously the playoffs and all that. It's been a rocky start for the 22, so it's nice to – I mean, we've been fast. It's just had a lot of things going on, so it's nice to get one in.
With all the noise this week about, teammates and communication and all that stuff, was it a little bit nerve-wracking to race with a teammate, or would you prefer to race a teammate as opposed to somebody else in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, nothing changes, right? I mean, we all work together. We're brothers, right? As I say, we're brothers, and sometimes brothers don't always get along, but you're still family. You got to figure it out, and we did, and everything's going to be fine, and it's great to be in Victory Lane and getting a Penske car in Victory Lane. That was the goal there. You want your two cars on the front row for the final restart. That's the ultimate goal, and one of them are going to get it. So it's nice to do that.
For sure. Joey Logano's first top 5 of the season is a doozy. It's a win here in the Worth 400 at Texas. All right, so I wanted to play that because of the second question and answer there. Is basically he had to race. So the part I skipped over in that sequence is that he had to race Ryan Blaney from the front row, door handle to door handle into the first turn, and at a track where it's easy for a car to make a mistake there. And I thought I knew the answer, which is you'd rather race a teammate than somebody else. But, also, would he have made the same move, do you think, Devin, on Ryan Blaney going below the white line into turn 3 as he did on McDowell, who's Spire Motorsports?
I think he probably would have. Look, Logano's a driver that's still looking, or was still looking, for his first win of the season.
Yeah.
And sometimes these wins can be hard to come by. It took a while for Logano to break that winless streak last year. It wasn't until the All-Star race, and really the points paying race came at Nashville.
Yeah.
But I feel like he probably would have made the same move on Ryan Blaney. Blaney, also another driver, still looking for his first win. So I think when you look at it from the team dynamic, I think he probably would have still made the move regardless of who that was.
Yeah, I think so too. And maybe he doesn't feel as desperate to make it because he knows Blaney's going to give him a little more room than McDowell does. Who knows? But nonetheless, a very exciting finish. A lot of people had a bite at the apple. Now, I know with 12 cautions, 73 laps, I saw Jeff Gluck's poll. Roughly only half of people thought in that poll it was a good race. I was like, what are you kidding me? If it had stayed green the whole time, they couldn't pass. I could see the argument for it being a bad race. Texas's reputation precedes it. I'm not going to be a shill for SMI here. Texas's reputation precedes it, but the last few races have been chaotic, yes, but they haven't been totally random, all right? If you survive these crashes, that's not totally random, all right? If you keep yourself on the lead lap, that's not totally random. With this race, so it saw leaders crashing from the lead. It saw people that had been fighting for the lead crash. It saw 2-tire pit stops change up the running order. We still managed with all the cautions to have at least one green flag sequence in this race, pit stops. All right, in stage 3, and there was a caution that came out in the middle of it, and it screwed up some people's running order and where they were. Did they stay on the lead lap or not, and that kind of thing too. It had a little bit of everything. There weren't anybody fighting. But Christopher Bell and John Hunter Nemechek did have a polite conversation after the race. That was a disagreement. But, there wasn't a fight, I guess, but it had a little bit of everything else. And no one got hauled off to the hospital either, all right? I don't know. I don't know what you want. It was a beautiful day, 75 degrees, crystal clear skies, a great crowd. By today's standards in NASCAR, all right, and by what Texas has been criticized for in the last few years, that crowd supported that race. Devin, you looked up the tickets last week and saw there were very few available. And also we were told there were suites that they opened up at that track that they had not used in 10 or 15 years, corporate suites up top. So I don't know I know you're not rating if a race is good or not based on Chamber of Commerce, weather, and good ticket sales, but that crowd was charged up and it was busy around there. There was a buzz around Texas. The moving the date to May and having some separation between it and COTA is good. We also got lucky that it wasn't like 85 or 90 degrees. You can have that early heat wave. I don't know what more you could want at Texas. And last thing, ratings compared to this Texas race a year ago were up by a double-digit percentage. I think it was like 15, 20%. I don't have the exact number. Also, Formula One and NASCAR in all their glory, just like Formula One, just like NASCAR and IndyCar do, schedule their races at the same freaking time. F1 was in Miami. I can assure you that race was not as exciting as this one. And NASCAR had several 100,000 more viewers. Now, NASCAR got murdered in the 18 to 49 demographic. Okay. F1, they've got people mine and Devin's age deal. Okay. But NASCAR won the TV war too. And NASCAR made sure to put out a nice big long press release about that on Tuesday as well. So Devin, I don't know what more people want to see except for maybe a little more passing organically. I just don't know.
Yeah, I think really on Sunday was a really good race, and I think the fans really showed out at Texas Motor Speedway, and it was a good crowd. I looked at the ticket sales going towards the end of last week's episode, and they were really strong, which was something that Texas Motor Speedway needed. But I thought it was a decent Texas race, and you saw the crowd represent there. I thought it was like, man, that's a massive crowd for Texas, because I don't think I've ever seen a crowd that big at Texas in a long, long time. But you can kind of feel the energy a little bit, that this is a little bit of a bigger deal, I guess, now
Yeah.
because of the packed grandstands. But how was the infield and all that? Was that busier than it was in prior years as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me to compare it to prior years because the last Texas race I went to was an Xfinity standalone in 2022, and the last one before that, I was a turn announcer in 2019. So, I mean, but I think it was really good. I think the infield, I didn't feel like there was big gaping areas of missing people. I think every metric that they had was probably bigger than they expected. All right. This race also had a first-time pole sitter, Carson Hocevar, who stayed up in the top 10, not a fluke pole. He did lose track position on pit road and then just lost the car a little bit there. He took out Ryan Preece, racing really hard, pitched him up into the fence and things like that. I think he pitched Ryan Preece up to the fence. Preece and Preece's crew chief, Derek Finley, not happy with the 77. So add those to the non-Chili's gift card takers there later in that race for sure. So that's the deal. Carson Hocevar ended up finishing a lap down in 24th after that. He also was in the truck race and made a lot of noise there, had battery issues in the truck race, and had to pit under green to address those, and did not get a good finish there, making his return to trucks and Spire Motorsports equipment as well. So Joey Logano was your winner. He only led 7 laps on the day, but they were the ones that mattered. Who finished second? Wasn't Ryan Blaney, was not Kyle Larson, who led 90 laps on the day and topped everybody. No. It was Ross Chastain, who started 31st and just kept chugging up through the field, and then eventually got into a place where he was running in the top 10, and then did Ross Chastain Superman maneuvers on the restart there to get into that second position. Ross Chastain, how about it? Trackhouse struggled mightily this weekend, and most of that race too, but both Chastain and Suarez, as you'll hear, got some good finishes out of it. Third went to Ryan Blaney, who was kicking himself afterwards on his choices on the second to last restart. Kyle Larson, as soon as he got a dirty air, affected the balance on that Valvoline number 5 Chevrolet, and he finished 4th. Now look at this one. Eric Jones, who you will hear from in a separate episode of 5 to Go this week. I've got a conversation with him later today as he's down helping promote for Atlanta Motor Speedway and for his foundation. Eric Jones in his 300 Cup start finishes in the 5th spot. Best finish of the year there for EJ Legacy Motor Club. Another aside about Legacy Motor Club, Jimmy Johnson did a really great full-length interview with Davey Siegel on his Victory Lane podcast. Check out Victory Lane with Davey Siegel, Jimmy Johnson, about 25, 30 minutes of Jimmy Johnson there. Excellent work there by Duve, as his dad calls him. 6 goes to Ricky Stenhouse, who is persona non grata all day. Not a factor. Stenhouse even got run out in the grass there when Kyle Busch spun out late in the race. And Busch had gotten up into the top 5. It was running third when he just crashed by himself. Stenhouse, though, rebounds to finish 6th. Busch's teammate Austin Dillon ends up 7th. Again, where was he all day? I didn't even know he was in the race. Finished 7th. 8th goes to John Hunter Nemechek. What? He raced hard there, and they got into the top 10 before a lot of the crashing happened, too. I mean, just by pit strategy and by going hard. 9th went to Christopher Bell, who also kind of had a mess starting position and also had a point where they had the hood up on that Toyota and where they were adjusted like shocks and springs and all sorts of stuff, trying to get that thing dialed in. And the Interstate Batteries car and their hometown sponsor finished 9th. And then that was Daniel Suarez there, like I mentioned before, finishing in the 10th spot. Suarez, I thought, didn't have much going all day. He was one of my drivers, and suddenly he pops up in the top 10. And I don't like it when things are random, Devin, but these cars that finished from basically 5th through 10th were not a part of the deal all day, but they stayed out of trouble and took some 2 tires and did some things that the tire fall off was such. Crew chiefs had different choices they could make, and the tire fall off mattered enough. If you were on 2 tires too long, you started to fall back. I don't know what more people wanted.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a really good race on Sunday. We saw the movement of it got chaotic at the end, just a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But I thought overall, from what I saw, it was a decent race at Texas.
Chris
I think look, in my opinion, the bump added something.
Yeah, some people are talking about grinding the bump down and all that stuff, which they had to do at Atlanta. And in Atlanta, where you're in a drafting deal, you probably don't need that bump there to upset the turbulence, if you will, or to create turbulence, if you will. In this case, leave it, man. That's the risk you take. You want to go on that second groove and really hang it out. Josh Berry crashed. I was listening to his radio. He crashed from the lead and told his team, sorry, guys, last lap it worked. I tried it again, then it didn't work the second time. That's part of it. That's part of hanging it on the razor blade edge. Would I prefer that these cars have bias ply tires so they could really find that if they had a little more room on the edge to hang those cars out? Yes. Would I prefer they didn't have the low profile on the tires so they could feel it more and have a little more room to save it? Yes. All right. Because then they could probably get side by side easier. Do I like, though, that there's a consequence for going over the edge? Yeah. What'd you get Sunday, man? That was fun. A couple other things to mention, too. Tyler Reddick had a great car at one point, and it kind of fell away, but he crashed also up there in the top 10 and had said, basically he was surprised he didn't just destroy his race car, and he finished 21st. I mentioned Kyle Busch had clawed his way up there, finished 20th. Chris Buescher didn't lead any laps. In fact, he's only led 2 all year. Can you believe that? Chris Buescher, though, finished 18th. He was up in the mix early in the going, had a cut tire and some trouble there and ended up not finishing well. So he cut a tire and it put debris on the track, and he fortunately got a yellow. Austin Cindric led 60 laps. He got turned around in one of the big wrecks there. And some guys that took some hard hits. Brad Keselowski, again, running in the top 10, doing what he needs to do. He lost it, crashed, 28th. Ryan Preece, destroyed in the Carson Hocevar crash, 29th. Chase Briscoe, who was 3 seconds off the pace all day because of crash damage. He had just lost it too. He was 27th. And we mentioned McDowell finished in 26th. So it was a tough grind of a day for a lot of these teams, and it was only 400 miles. I just want to say this used to be a 500-mile race. We don't need 500 miles, like almost anywhere, okay, including Atlanta. We good. We good. Look at the point standings here before we get into some other stories. William Byron, who really was kind of ghostly all day. Didn't hear a whole lot from him. And then he had some major issues. He's on pit road. He hit another car, got nose damage, and just it didn't work. He had to pit early on that last sequence. We did get a green flag sequence, like I mentioned. He pitted early because it was just such a handful to drive. And so he ended up finishing outside the top 10. But he still leads the points now, though, by only 13 over his teammate Kyle Larson. They're 13 points different as far as the regular season standings. William Byron now has 1 less stage point than Kyle Larson factored into that. And if you look at that, Larson's got more playoff points than him too by 8. So Denny Hamlin, who blew an engine and finished last in this race, he finished 38th, a fiery situation there. I asked him at the care center, hey, is there something going on with these engines? We've had a few of these this year. And he said he doesn't know. Maybe teams trying to make a little more power. And he was trying to make it not completely blow up so they could diagnose the problem. But once it grenaded, that was it. Denny Hamlin's third in points with his 2 wins there. Fourth in the points and actually tied with Hamlin, but losing it on the tiebreaker with number of wins is who, Devin?
Repeat that again. Sorry.
Just who's tied for third in the points with Denny Hamlin?
You got our Dawsonville driver, Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott. All right. For all the dirt that's getting thrown at him, and he had another just meh race on Sunday. The only time he got in the top 10 was on tire strategy, and he couldn't make the car stick and fell back. He's technically fourth in the standings. Tyler Reddick gains a spot to fifth. Christopher Bell is sixth with his 3 wins, and he's only sixth in points. Bell's had some uneven results this year. Ryan Blaney gains a spot up to seventh after a bad finish in Talladega, has a good one in Texas. Bubba Wallace actually loses a spot and is in eighth because he crashed in the race. Joey Logano climbs up 2 positions to ninth. Alex Bowman is 10th in the points. Driver on the bubble right now is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He is 12 points ahead of Kyle Busch. Ricky's technically 15th in points. However, Josh Berry, with his win being 24th in the standings, puts him in there. And I want to say, I'm so surprised Josh Berry is 24th in points because he's run better than that. But Josh Berry also only has 2 top 10s this year and 3 DNFs. And that's kind of why you have that weird sort of dichotomy in the results. So there's your look at your point standings there. Devin, any other thoughts of the Cup race in Texas?
Not really. I like that the bump was there. It added character to Texas Motor Speedway on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't see what problems that there would be with that. You don't want it to be random, and the Cup cars like really can't afford to hit anything, right? They just can't bottom out. They lose control. But I mean, at the same point, like that's part of it. You got to know the risk. And I mean, the Xfinity and the trucks also had troubles dealing with that too. Now, in the Saturday Xfinity race, the score sheet's going to show is all Kyle Larson, but there was a point where it was all Justin Allgaier. Larson had to come up through the field. He started 20th in this race, substituting for Connor Zilisch. Zilisch, who had the back injury after the hard Talladega crash. I talked to Zilisch in the garage on Friday, and he just said basically, hey, look, we got 2 off weeks coming up. People crash hard at Texas. We thought it would just be a good idea for me to sit out. He wasn't in a wheelchair. He wasn't on crutches. He was just out chilling with the boys. And in fact, he was part of a foursome in the garage with Herbst, Brandon Jones, and Taylor Gray, just chilling. All right. You would never know he was hurt. And I think in a different era, he would have been in that race car. But because you can afford to miss a race due to injury now, and it doesn't take you out of the championship, he's already got to win. Just take another week to heal. So he's going to get 3 weeks to heal. And Kyle Larson substituted and won the race. But he didn't even lead the second most laps. It was Justin Allgaier's show, buddy. But Allgaier, who led 99 laps, ended up running into the lap car of Chris Wright. Chris Wright is making headlines this year for all the wrong reasons. Once again, Wright didn't hold his line. Allgaier maybe was a little aggressive trying to pass him. Nonetheless, crashes right into him, just smokes him, and done for the day. Allgaier finishes 35th. Larson's able to win. And Larson, here's the other thing, Devin, because you were working Saturday. You didn't see this, right?
No, I didn't catch any of the Xfinity race.
You check this out. Larson had the lead. He had control of the race. And his crew chief, Marty Lindley, pits him for 4 tires, and almost no one else in the top 10 pits. So he goes back, restarts like 10th. Okay, and then you've got the damaged car of Sam Mayer trying to hold the lead. Mayer is one of my drivers. He got right rear damage when someone drove into the grass, and that's something we ought to address here, talking especially Xfinity and trucks. He got driven into the grass basically, and then trouble ensued. But Sam Mayer's trying to hold on to it, trying to get that finish, and Larson, with these slower cars in front of him, just claws through, and they, much like the Cup race, several late restarts, and he goes up and he ends up winning the race there. And the number 88, Taylor Gray, kind of comes out of nowhere to finish second. He had been outside the top 10 most of the day. Riley Herbst, with crash damage, another driver of mine to pit road, ended up finishing third. Austin Hill led 57 laps. He was fourth. Sam Mayer, like I mentioned, he ended up 5th. Harrison Burton with a good run at 6th. Rest of the top 10, Jesse Love, Ryan Sieg, Brandon Jones, and Jeb Burton. And I got to give it a big comeback for Jeb Burton. He started inside the top 10, ran in the back, though. Ran in the back. There was a point where he lost a lot of track position. He was pretty upset about that, and he ended up clawing back to finish 10th there. So good race for the Xfinity Series there on Saturday. And on the point standing side, just to give you, I won't do the whole top 10, but just to kind of give you an idea of where people are. Let my page load. There we go. Justin Allgaier in the regular season points leads by 51 over Austin Hill. Allgaier with 2 wins, Hill with 3. Look at the difference in stage points. Justin Allgaier, for as much as we talk about Richard Childress Racing dominating the Xfinity Series as far as wins and stage wins, Justin Allgaier has 141 stage points. Austin Hill has 97. What a difference. 44-point difference, I believe that is. And then on the playoff bubble, Connor Zilic is actually in that, well, he's got to win, but he's the driver that's the lowest in the points at 12th there, and then 6 out of the, or I guess it'd be 11 out of the playoffs is Daniel Dye to Sheldon Creed in 11th. So there you go. Some good drivers, Taylor Gray, Nick Sanchez, Christian Eckes that are on the wrong side of the playoff bubble. So that's your Xfinity Series rundown. As for the trucks, it's a guy that you would definitely have expected to win that, and Corey Heim. But Heim also had to survive, Devin, several late restarts, and a move that Daniel Hemrick made 3 wide to the bottom of turn 1 on Friday night that I asked Hemrick about it after the race. Can you please walk me through that? And he almost made it stick. Heim also ran Ben Rhodes a little bit high. Rhodes was upset after the race, not like going after Heim or anything, but Rhodes was very frustrated talking to his team about it, and then told me about it with a smile on PRN, or NRN technically, saying, he got run out of the groove and had to get out of the throttle, and that gave up the race. So Corey Heim wins. Daniel Hemrick, Raja Caruth, Tyler Ankrum, and Tanner Gray, Taylor's older brother, end up rounding out the top 5. So the truck race was also they had 15 lead changes, but in a 250-mile race, Devin, 11 cautions for 57 laps. So you talked about the bump. I want to ask you this. I know you're like, God, would you just shut up and let me talk for once, Doug? Okay, come on. No, but I want to ask you this. You talked about the bump, the grass. That double dog leg, the second dog leg on the front stretch, a lot of drivers were clipping that grass. Josh Williams told me at the Care Center Saturday, the deal with the grass is you're over there following everybody. If someone takes a little bit of an aggressive line to turn 1 and clips the grass, you almost don't see it. It's usually like the second or third person behind them that drives into it, kind of like turn 1 of the Charlotte Roval. Do you think if they keep the bump at turn 3 and 4 that they should do something about this grass, whether it's putting in turf or paving it over a little bit or what? I'm seeing body language.
No, you need to be penalized going off track. And it doesn't need to be a penalty from NASCAR, but the track will penalize you itself.
Yeah, I like it.
And don't put turf down. Do not put turf down because you just glide right over that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I'm not going to argue with you at all there. It was exciting. I don't like seeing people crash hard, but don't drive in the grass. I mean, sometimes you can get driven in the grass and lose control. That's what Sam Mayer maintained happened in his situation. You just got knocked down the track and people being too aggressive. Gio Ruggiero took a lot of heat, especially from Caden Honeycutt. The Ruggiero set off a big crash that eliminated his teammate himself, his teammate Brandon Jones, Caden Honeycutt, maybe something else on a Friday night. And Honeycutt was very critical of the boneheaded move made there. And I asked Ruggiero, hey, any conversations need to be had? He basically said he needed to go watch it again to kind of see what happened. But Corey Heim was your winner in that race, well-deserved, leads the points by 46 over Chandler Smith. Third in the standings is Daniel Hemrick. How about that? He has a win. Tyler Ankrum, who won the fuel mileage race at Rockingham, fourth in the standings. And Ty Majeski, who's kind of had some uneven results this year, including 2 DNFs before last Friday's race. He ended up ends up sitting 5th in the standings there. Any other thoughts on trucks there, Dev?
None for me. Funny story. I was watching some of the truck race with my coworker Ryan Shee, and we were in the indoor practice facility because they had to move us from the press box to the indoor practice facility there. So we were hitting some balls there. Had my first at bat in probably like 15 years, but it was a good time. So we were watching it in like a
softball
break
or baseball?
room. Huh?
Softball or baseball?
Baseball. Well, okay. I could have done softball too, but I did baseball.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I would love to go to the cage.
Hopefully none of the superiors are none of my superiors are listening to this, but
No, let's hope everybody is listening and watching on my YouTube
oh,
channel and on Apple and
of
Spotify.
course,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Sure,
You're helping.
I might have tripped a little bit, got a little bit of a turf knee, but it's okay at the end of the day because we're just having fun.
You wish they put grass in. Okay, no. So,
Yeah. Where's the grass inside?
oh my gosh, I feel like my dad asked that question back in the 70s. Okay, so so that wraps it up for Texas there. Overall, I think a successful weekend. I'm not just saying that because I was there. I think all series put on shows, and yeah, we could have had a little bit cleaner races, a little bit higher driving acumen, and so forth. But that's what you get with drivers putting it on the edge in a win and you're in scenario. Now, the big story came out the day before this recording. We're not going to marinate on it here because it already got talked about on 5 to Go 2 weeks ago. Championship race will be in Homestead at 26. There will be a rotation of tracks. I would think that Phoenix would be part of those as well. And I'm okay with it being in the rotation. They haven't said what tracks just yet. Also, Ben Kennedy said just in that same vein that they haven't the 2026 Clash will not be an international race. That's all he would commit to. So he didn't commit to Bowman Gray, but didn't say it was going to be in Brazil or anything like that. Staying with NASCAR management, the PGA, what sport is that, Devin?
Professional Golf
See,
Association.
we know it all here on 5 to Go. The Professional Golf Association is interested in NASCAR commissioner. Got to get used to calling him that, Steve Phelps, maybe to become their commissioner too. And I didn't know their commissioner job was up in the air. I don't know much about that, so it shows what I know. But that's an interesting little wrinkle there. Is could Steve Phelps be interested in the PGA? I remember going back to like 2003 or 4 around there, or maybe a little bit later, where Brian France had designs on maybe becoming the NFL commissioner or becoming an NFL team owner and getting out of NASCAR. Turns out he got himself out of NASCAR in a very different way, sayonara. But that's an interesting story there. And I think Phelps has done good work, Devin, for NASCAR. I don't know that I'd like to see a change at the top of the sport just yet.
Yeah, I think it might be a little too soon since he really came into fruition in the later part of the decade. So we're starting to really see the Phelps era over the past couple of years. But I don't know. I some fans would disagree, but I think we just need to wait some things out.
I did run into him in the Texas Motor Speedway Media Center, said hello, and he said, "Hey, man, keep up the great work on 5 to Go. That is the best racing analysis you could possibly get from 3 people on an early Tuesday morning." Well, today's Wednesday. No, he said hello back. That was it. Yeah, I might have made up the rest. Okay. Another little thing here. This doesn't change a lot. The case is still going forward, but Rick Ware Racing had tried to get a restraining order put against Legacy Motor Club to not sell their charter. Or sorry, let me say that again. Okay. Rick Ware Racing was trying to get a restraining order okay, let me start that again. Legacy Motor Club was trying to prevent Rick Ware from selling a restraining order, and that was denied, basically. So that while this case is going forward, I guess technically Rick Ware could sell that charter elsewhere. That's kind of what the deal was. Legacy Motor Club, as the court documents show, reportedly paid $45 million for that charter, and they wanted it next year. Rick Ware said that their initial agreement was to get it in 2027. And here's the deal. Part of it is they have an agreement with their second charter to lease it to Roush Fenway Kozlowski Racing. You can't lease the same charter to a team in consecutive years. So what they're going to do is flip it. So the charter Cody Ware is using in the 51 would be Ryan Preece's charter in 2026. They already have an agreement for that. So someone's not reading these contracts closely or something. There's some shenanigans going on. And they're trying to figure out when Legacy could get dibs on Rick Ware's other charter, either their other charter or their current one. I don't really know, but go ahead.
Shouldn't Legacy Motor Club then try and reach out to RFK Racing and try and strike a deal with them? Because then at that point,
but it's not RFK's charter. They're just leasing it.
They are leasing it, but get them out of that lease so that they can buy the charter.
Well, but RFK doesn't want to be out of the lease. They want their own charter. Well, here's what I'm surprised is why isn't RFK working out a deal to buy Rick Ware's charter, and instead why is it Legacy Motor Club? That's the one I don't get either.
Hey, show me the money. Show me the money.
Where's it, Dan?
Show me the money.
I need to have a show me the money hot button here, just like
we should.
Okay, we're gonna work on that. Yeah, I just do the Dr. Evil. Show me the money, which is from Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. All right, so we had that. We talked about Connor Zilic. Another little note from the Xfinity race coming out of Talladega is that Matt DiBenedetto's number 99 team and the number 87 Jordan Anderson Racing team of Austin Green both lost 20 owner and drivers points and 5 potential playoff points because they had illegal extensions or pieces put on their bumpers at Talladega that gave some aerodynamic advantage there. And then lastly on my news list here, Devin, NASCAR's had that Fast TV, that free ad-supported television channel that has been on Tubi, and I've watched that a couple times. I enjoy it. I don't watch it often, though, but I do watch it some. They are now putting that same channel on Zumo, which is basically Xfinity and Charter's venture that has the same kind of offerings that Tubi does. So Tubi's owned by Fox. This is one owned by Xfinity and Charter called Zumo. NASCAR Fast is on there, but here's the one that really kind of got us going, is that Sirius XM's morning drive show, I think is beginning now their second or third week being shown on NASCAR's fast channels, wherever those different channels appear, Devin. And so that's a big deal because Sirius is a paid service and they're providing I would say their top flight program, their most listened to program for free now.
Yeah. I saw it a few weeks ago and I was like, oh, this is interesting. They're putting a video feed of the morning drive on the channel, which is, I don't think is a bad idea. You know, NASCAR, it's a really good morning. It's a really good morning show that is on Sirius XM. I listen to it from time to time. The one thing I really like about the morning drive, and it's not even NASCAR related, is that every day around this time, going into the 9 o'clock hour, they'll do a calendar. So they'll do birthdays, all that, people in the sport. And then they'll also go, oh, what day is it? Like, oh, it's National Hot Dog Day or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's some obscure thing that they'll have it, but it's a good show. It's a good show.
That is classic good morning radio right there, digging up birthdays and what national flagship day it is too. Yeah, I like it. No, it's a true morning show. It's not just, look, we stay really on 5 to Go very specifically to NASCAR, right? We stay right in that lane, and it's good to see them vary a little bit. Mike Bagley is, I think, just a phenomenal host, and so is Pete Pistone. Pete Pistone, by the way, condolences to him. His mother just passed away, so we're thinking about Pete and the team over there. But yeah, big news there on the NASCAR media front. And here's another one too, Dev. Here's another one. So we've seen in kind of drips and drabs and pieces what the lineups are going to be for Prime Video and the new TV partners. Of course, we know what the CWs are because they're on all year. So on TNT and Max, it seems like really a lot of the stuff that's happening on Prime is going to the TNT way too. But they do have a different set of pit reporters and studio anchors and so forth. I need to pull up the whole thing actually, but on the pit reporter side, you've got Marty Snyder, no big surprise. He's with NBC. See him on pit road all the time. But Danielle Trotta, who has done a lot of studio work. I don't know how much she's done in the pits, but she's got a big presence on Sirius XM, and before that was on FS1. And my man, who gave me an airport ride in Texas at 2:45 Central Time in the morning on Monday so we can catch our early flights. Alan Cavana is going to be on pit road. He hasn't been on pit road, I think, since 2020 or so when he was back with FS1 doing trucks. So Alan Cavana, Danielle Trotta, Marty Snyder on pit road, Jamie Mack and Larry Mack, Jamie Murray and Larry McReynolds, they're going to be doing an alternative broadcast. You've also got some other studio presences there. That's a nice, fresh little lineup there, Dev, for the TNT races.
Yeah, it is, and it's good to see Alan Cavana back on TV. I think he's a guy that definitely deserves that gig and adds some youth to the pit road lineup when it comes to NASCAR on TV.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, that shows. So there's going to be the pre and post race shows hosted by Shannon Spake and Jamie McMurray and Parker Klugerman. All right. You got your pit reporters that we mentioned. And Mamba Smith is going to be the Bleacher Report racing correspondent, on-air contributive. Did I say Marty? I meant to say Mamba. All right. There's going to be an alternate, the in-season challenge. So this is going to be the second half of the in-season tournament, right? No, this is going to be the full in-season tournament, right?
Yeah, it'll be because it starts off at Atlanta.
Yeah,
in-season tournament.
Right. So
I think it ends at the Brickyard.
That's it. So I mentioned, I may have erroneously said before that was on Prime. That this is the TNT Max Bleacher Report lineup. Okay. Um, and so that's going to start Saturday, June 28th at Atlanta Motor Speedway. You're going to have an alt cast featuring Jeff Burton and Larry McReynolds. I misspoke before. It was not Jamie McMurray. So Jamie McMurray's on the pre and post race show, but Jeff Burton and Larry Mack are going to be on the alternative broadcast. The main booth is going to be Dale Jr., Steve Letarte, and Adam Alexander. Adam Alexander is also going to be the main play-by-play on Prime, along with Dale Jr. and Steve Letarte, too. So it's kind of interesting how you have the same booth, but you're mixing and matching pit reporters a little bit and studio shows. You're getting just about every person that you've seen on TV over the years, save Alan Beswick. All right. You're getting almost every person you've seen on TV the last few years bites at the apple here on these TNT and Prime broadcasts.
Yeah, you really are. And I think it's really cool that TNT is going to do an all cast because it's something NASCAR hasn't had in, oh gosh, I'd say the pandemic, since the pandemic happened, they haven't had an all cast for any of their races. Because Fox used to do it for the Daytona 500. They used to have an all cast, not like what TNT is doing, where it's a little more professional. But Fox Sports used to have all casts for some NASCAR races.
With who?
It would just be, celebrities and stuff. You'd watch along with the race and stuff. But this is before the pandemic. The pandemic nixed a lot of these things. NBC used to do an all cast for the championship races. They would have, actually, believe it or not, Lee Diffie would commentate on the alt cast. This is
I forgot
everything. Everything went down the gutter in 2020, or after 2020 at least. But they used to do all cast for the championship races. So, yeah, this is the first time in a long time we've had an alt cast.
I don't remember altcast at all. Wow. Okay. I guess because I never watched them. That interesting. Okay.
Well, and also too, you want TNT. I think might be pouring a lot into NASCAR because guess what? They don't have the NBA anymore. After this month, they're done with the NBA because they lost their contract with the NBA because NBC and Peacock outbid them, or just NBC. But
yeah. Well, that was a big deal for sure. And wasn't it? Was it NBC or was it ESPN? I thought
no, it was NBC that took TNT's contract. But you got to think about it though. What's TNT's biggest property? TNT Sports' biggest property now.
Well, I thought it was the NBA, but I guess is it college basketball now? It's
got to be NASCAR because on a consistent basis, NASCAR will draw in more viewers than that. And I know the March Madness tournament, but that's only a month out of the year.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't know.
So NASCAR is technically the highest property that they have at the moment, I think.
I would think it'd be the college basketball. So, but yeah, that's such an ephemeral thing. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well that's a great point though. Is they do have more funds to allocate to it. You sort of see on the opposite end of that with Fox, and I'm not trying to throw too much shade, but Fox I think feels a little bit spurned by NASCAR in different ways, from NASCAR doing the production facility and kind of going head to head with them with Race Hub, and then also chopping up the TV product even more to where they have less of it or had to bid higher to get more of it after putting so many years into it. And Fox, it seems like it said, you know what? Okay, fine. We're going to move a lot of our, you see Bob Pockers have to cover IndyCar also now. And you're seeing what I'm hearing is some of the behind the scenes talent is gone to the IndyCar side. You don't have some of the top talent you used to behind the scenes on the NASCAR side. That's going to add up. And so it's good to see other networks try to pour in on the Fox side and, pour in on their NASCAR coverage and make it better. NASCAR should get I won't say top billing. It's not the number one sport, but it should get some high billing from these networks, considering what the product is, what the ratings are, right? So, but exciting stuff. And again, just on a personal level, we're happy for people that are getting another bite of the apple, like Alec Havana and Danielle Trotta and so forth, and having all casts and all that. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think also, too, just a little props, too, TNT sending 3 pit reporters to the track. I think that's important. Of course I do. I was just a 3rd pit reporter, okay? But really, I think when I had to do the Friday and Saturday races of PRN, and it's just normal truck race, you just have 2 pit reporters because you don't have as many contending trucks. That's a lot to handle if you have to also go to the care center. It's a lot to handle if you have all these different strategies and things like that. And on TV, you don't just have a pit reporter. You've got a producer that's with them and a third person holding what's called a jerk cam, a camera on a stick with RF that you can watch the race, and you have a cameraman. All right, and then there's a separate pit producer that's not on pit road that's scanning and monitoring things. There's a lot going on. So to send a whole third team there, I think shows a big commitment too on the TV side. So that does it for the TV coverage side there, Devin. Any other things that rattling around the NASCAR news that you think are worth noting?
No, I think, and I think I mentioned it with Dan a few weeks ago. Championship rotation, they should do. I don't know what NASCAR is going to do with the playoffs next year, but this is what the final round championship rotation needs to be: Martinsville, Atlanta, Kansas. There you go.
Martinsville, Atlanta. I'm okay with it being in cold weather for sure. And I'm okay with Martinsville being part. I still think with Atlanta with the drafting stuff.
No, you got the three main course. You think about it, right? It's 6 races of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. Well, okay, but you're meaning there should be a final championship round.
Yes, 3 races.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Atlanta's not the finale.
If Atlanta is 1/3 of the championship round, I'm great with it. If Atlanta is the championship race once every 3 years, then
I think what you can do with Atlanta is you're going to have to change. I think you could run Atlanta as a championship race, but you're going to have to change the package those cars run. They're going to have to run a standard intermediate package.
well, if it was a single championship race,
yes.
yeah, we agree on that. Absolutely. We'll see what happens. ISC or the NASCAR affiliated track operator owns those dates. But yeah, if they redo the playoffs, Dale Jr. did a whole thing on his show last week how he thinks it should be full season, no playoffs, and made a good case for it. I don't agree with him, but he made a really good case for it. But I think that there will be some sort of tweak in the playoffs, and it seems like the most likely thing talked about is that the championship race will not be a race; it'll be a round. And I'm okay with that. If it's three races and 4 drivers and accumulating points, maybe if you're a guy that enters that last race 15 or 20 points down, doing some desperate stuff. I mean, yeah, I could go for that because your finishes before it do matter. All right, quickly on the entry list stuff here as we approach the 1 hour mark. Cup race, Kansas. Jesse Love will be he keeps switching around here. He'll be in the 33 car again. Interesting he's getting all these cup races. Interesting that Jesse Love is getting all these cup races with C4 Energy and the sponsor there. He'll be back on the RCR House team, number 33 this weekend. And Corey Heim, 2311 development driver, is going to be in the number 67 Toyota for 2311. I'm really interested to see where Corey Heim ends up here in the next year or two, especially as Denny Hamlin stuff is starting to come down. Now, practice and qualifying for the Cup Series race will be Saturday, 4:35 Eastern time in the afternoon, a little later in the day than expected, and that'll be strictly on Prime Video. The Cup Series race will be on FS1 Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time at Kansas Speedway. And I just want to point out again, the Cup race this past Sunday, by a good measure, outdid an American Formula One race. The Formula One race was on ABC. The Cup race is on FS1. Just saying.
Hey, who had the better racing?
And who had the better racing, no doubt. And I love F1, by the way. Props to Oscar Piastri. I mean, love F1, but come on, man. Xfinity race is off for the next 2 weeks. Let me toggle over to the Truck Series real quick to give you their information because they're actually going to run on Saturday night, not on Friday night. And I think that's a big deal, too. And they'll be also on FS1 there. Let me just get to their page. Some notables in that race. Only 30. Now, health of the series alert. Only 31 trucks are coming to the Kansas race, and they could have up to 36. All right. Brandon Jones will be in the 1. William Byron for Spire will be in the 07. Carson Hosevar in the number 7. Morgan Baird, I don't know. I know that I've seen the name before. I don't know anything about him, but Morgan Baird will be in the 22 truck. And then there's the number 66 that Tommy Baldwin's son, Luke Baldwin's going to race. He raced at Martinsville as well. Green Flag, 7:37 Saturday night on FS1. Of course, it'll be on Sirius XM, and I should have mentioned the radio networks too, MRN, and then the Truck Series version, NRN, NASCAR Racing Network. And I wanted to see one last thing. It was where they're going to show I don't know if they're going to show practice and qualifying. Let me just see real quick. make sure, will there be practice? Yeah, untelevised Saturday practice and qualifying, 205 and 310. There's no networks listed for those. So
for the Truck Series.
for the Truck Series, yeah, and that was actually the truth at Texas as well. They didn't have it listed, So I do understand. I wish they had that as like a NASCAR app only thing or something. But the TV broadcast has to be worth it to put your talent on it too. So I get that. But anyway, that's going to be the Heart of Healthcare 200, and hopefully they won't have to make too many trips to the care center in that race there, Devin. So let me be punny like that. And with all that being said, Dev, look, we've talked ins and outs of all three top the series at Texas. We've touched on TV changes, championship race changes, some other stuff behind the scenes in NASCAR and with the charter and lawsuit world. We've run a pretty big gambit here. You got any last stories you want to throw on the pile here?
Now, just looking forward to the softball regional this weekend with North Georgia. Could potentially be my last. Potentially, we'll see if we host Supers. The number 2 team in the nation is also in our region, so I don't foresee them losing in their regional bracket. So there are good chances. My last weekend with athletics. Grateful for the 4 years that I've had with them, and wouldn't be here without them really today. So
Yeah.
2021 was a big year, and 5 to go and all that. But grateful for my time there.
Man, I'm grateful for you, Devin, and I love the stuff you've gotten to do. And like I said before, I look forward to seeing what's next. Be sure everybody can stay tuned to the 5 to Go channels. Now, not on YouTube because this will be audio only, but I will have an opportunity with Eric Jones on behalf of Atlanta Motor Speedway promoting the Quaker State 400 coming up, but also his foundation. He's doing an appearance at a library here in Southern Metro Atlanta, and I'm going to get to talk to him on the tail end of that since I couldn't go to it in person. Thankfully, the track fixed me up on that. Hey, final word for me is the emotional toll in this sport. Frankie Muniz was one of many drivers that crashed out of Friday night's truck race, but he didn't crash out for being disrespected by other drivers on the track, which he's said has happened before. He didn't make a mistake and crash out. He cut a tire, and he drives for the Reunion Brothers, the number 33 truck, and it's been a tough go for Frankie this year. He's way back in the points, doesn't have any good finishes, and he was actually putting a race together at Texas. And he blows a tire, hits the wall, done for the night. And when I came up to the care center, I was actually coming up to interview somebody else, and I saw him out there really having an impassioned interview with frontstretch.com. And when he was done with that, I of course, given his notoriety, we decided to do it for PRN, and he almost had tears in his eyes. Basically his words were, I just need a personal win. I come out here, I'm putting my heart and soul into this, and it's just not working out. I need a win. A lot of times, especially with drivers that are more successful, we pile on them. What the heck? What's going on with this guy? Why isn't he getting the results? And we forget the human factor. We forget the emotional factor. And Frankie Muniz was somebody there who knows he doesn't belong here yet. He's welcome here, but he doesn't feel like he has arrived. And he's someone, too, with a team that has a very small fleet of trucks, a very small shop. It could be right on the edge. And a lot of times drivers speak jock speak. Good run. We'll talk about it. And Frankie Muniz is wearing his heart on his sleeve. And I pray it turns around for him. And I thought that was a very compelling interview. And, it reminds us these are sacks of water and blood cells running around these cars. They're not robots. All right. As much as Dan wants to plug in the AI, they're not robots. So here, best of luck to Frankie Muniz there. And thank him for his time on PRN. Devin, thank you for your time today, man. I know you've been busy. I hope you get some rest coming up.
Yeah, it's been a busy stretch. This is finals week, so there's a lot of schoolwork. I actually got to do some right after the end of this podcast.
Look at me taking you away
Before
from
I got a long
there.
day at Culver's.
And you got a long day at Culver's there, boy. Which reminds me, I had a good bit of Andy's frozen custard at Texas Motor Speedway, which is your competitor there. But nonetheless, we appreciate you, Culver's, employing you, and Andy's frozen custard sponsor NASCAR. We appreciate all of you for tuning in here on 5 to Go YouTube page. We're just slowly climbing in views there, trying to maintain that, especially doing well with the short videos. So if you see especially a short video, whether we put it on our social media, ourselves on the 5 to Go Facebook page, the 5 to Go podcast Facebook page, or on my YouTube channel, which just search Doug Turnbull and Racing on YouTube and find that. share those things. We want to get more people watching that and make it even more relevant. So thank you for your support, everyone. Big shout out to Jeff. Jeff, who is actually about to move to Savannah, Georgia, lives in the Houston area now. I met him at the X Up. We shouldn't call it the Tweet Up anymore, right? But whatever. It's called the Tweet Up. And he is a listener of 5 to Go. I just, he knew I was on PRN. A couple people, Vincent I met, and a couple other guys who were familiar with me on PRN. And I didn't think they'd heard of the show. And Jeff's like, oh, man, that's a great listen. I listen every week. So, Jeff, shout out to you, bro. We love you spreading the word, and we love growing this audience one by one. So thank you, man, and best of luck on your move to Savannah. I look forward to talking to you some more on social media. So, Devin, props to you. Dan, we hope your wife Lolly heals up well after she fell and broke her arm there, and we know that you're over there playing Mr. Nurse, which, and by the way, a couple years ago, Halloween, Dan dressed up as a nurse, and he was pretty hot. So, he was what was the word you didn't know? Stone Cold Fox. Is that the one, Devin? When I said Ryan Blaney was Dan's a Stone Cold Fox in a nurse's uniform. So see, he shouldn't have missed. I'm just saying he shouldn't have missed. Okay. No, but anyway, Dan's over there taking care of her, and I'm sure he'll be back sooner than later. So we appreciate Dan. Thank you, everybody, for listening to 5 to Go, and we'll be back next week as we recap Kansas here. God bless and have a great week.